Hi, welcome. Our movie begins with our hero, Mason, when he was young and he used to say that he was sick of education and schoolwork and all of this. In the end, it was a valley. He did not do well in schools. The important thing is that our hero went to the army, and after that, he remained in the special forces. After that, his life changed and he became of great value. Then a mission comes to him in Belladoa with his squad in order for the boss, whose name is Vinny Gas, to kill him, but he finds out about them and destroys their plane with an RPG missile. He faced the land and the houses of everyone in it except for Mason, who was seriously injured. Unfortunately, the mission failed. He decided to leave the army and work in the law. After that, for how many years did we see Mason living a very normal life, married and having a daughter, but we know that his relationship with his wife is very tense because she sees him as a failed man. One day, Mason takes his daughter to take her to school. But on the way, she tells him that there is someone who is babysitting her at school, so he tells her that the one who is close to you has broken teeth, and after that, he goes to his office, and he is sitting there, his friend Sebastian, who after deserting the army, may God open it for him, and he still has a security company. It's a big deal. And that's why he offers him to go on a quick mission in the middle of nowhere. Pierre breaks Mason off and tells him it's impossible for me to go back to this place again. So Sebastian says to him, I'm telling you, what are you going to get for this mission? Us dollar. He looked at him like that and said to him, who said I'll never go back to this place again? And at night, his wife gets upset with him and tells him to divorce me like any real woman. He says to her, what happened, woman of everyone? She says to him, your daughter, father, heard what you said and broke her colleague's teeth. I wish she would leave me and walk away, and we would be like good. Indeed. The poor man feels his need and goes out, and the next day he goes to get the journalist. Clara leaves the house and they go to the airport. She tells him to bring the bag and come after me. On the way, Mason talks to her and learns that he was a special forces officer. Before that, she tells him, you must be asking yourself why he chose the country of Ladonia in particular. But I will tell you so that we can talk about its governor. So she gives. Donia is full of oil and natural gas, and Venges is an unlikely ruler and has never done any press interviews before. He tells her that this man was the reason for the death of most of his friends. She tells him that all that matters to me is that I have this conversation with him, and the two of them continue to talk to each other until they reach Donia, and at the airport, Vinny just stays at the reception and he also sits and talks to the journalist. So when she learns that he has to do a press interview with her because she is the owner of his hair, he is the only one who knew how to escape from death, and the car drives in the middle of a convoy of cars, but suddenly the first car explodes, so Claire says, join me, Mason. At that time, a group of rebels appears and Mason entered the house to protect Claire, the journalist, and he tells them to go for me, so that's it, and all the while there is a market in the place of the driver who died. He can go back to Laura in the car and knock the car behind him and knock on the car in front and make her look like her sister who is behind the replica. Then he gets out of the car and beats the rest and complains about them all alone, and Claire is amazed and does not believe her, and Finnish also sits and thanks him and tells him that he eliminated the coup movement and that he considers it an army alone, and Mason approaches him and tells him, Uncle, I know. He tells Claire to ride to get away from this place, because his mission is to secure her life and protect her, but for Claire, the important thing for her is that she does the meeting with Vinny Gas. She also says that this will be a scoop, so she will do the meeting at the time of the coup. But Mason tells her sincerely, lady, there is no time for this talk, and takes him to the forest to escape. But Vinny Gas stayed in Beirut behind them and Ben Bauer when he saw a satellite phone with Mason. At that time, Mason was calling Sebastian and telling him what happened, and asking him to act and get them out of this place. Quickly, he tells him that he will determine their location using the GPS and send them someone to take them from there. Then, Vinny just asks him to make a call from his phone, and Claire tells him to give him the phone at his brother's house, and he says to him, "What are you, my? Whoa, I know that you're worried about me, so I said to reassure you that it is me. I'm still living like this for a while, and I'll come to you. There's been a lot of tension over what happened, and the general comes in and tells him that their partners in the coup will not remain silent and will cause problems too. He forgets that the line is open, and after he finishes with me, he calls his nephew and tells them that I was sure that my nephew was the one. This coup was carried out. And I was sure, so Mason says to him, you were waiting for the generals to come and take you, but Claire and I will wait here to see how we are. He does not think that Sebastian will be rescued. At that time, he receives a call from one of Sebastian's side and tells him to specify your exact location, and after he knows their location, he tells him that he is in front of him, exactly 2 minutes, and they will be there, and in fact 2 minutes later they will see a helicopter coming toward them, so he tells Claire that we will walk from here and return to our country. After that, God kept trying to solve it, but they were surprised by armed men, and after that the second one flew. So he thought that the matter was treacherous, so he ran into the forest and asked Claire to run quickly, and the armed men, they shoot them with fire, but the important thing is that none of them are scratched until they land in a lake and emerge from it, and then they see a helicopter coming at them, so he grabs the sniper and shoots at it until he is certain that the pilot is dead. But unfortunately, the plane is coming towards them and looks determined to get rid of them, so Mason tells Claire to run quickly. In fact, each one of them runs as fast as he can, but in the end, unfortunately, they get lost from each other, and Claire is alone and remains afraid and calls for Mason. At that time, she sees one of the armed men coming towards her, and she becomes very terrified, but Mason appears and complains, and they continue to hit each other in a very, very violent way, but Mason is able in the end. He finishes him off, and then he reassures Claire and tells her that it's very well, but they are surprised to find that Vengus is standing behind him, and they are struck with fire. And he tells him that, here, my love, were you not asking about me? After that, Vengus takes the youth and goes to hide with his loved ones in a safe place. They thanked Mason because he saved them from death. At the same time, Jorge is watching the plane that exploded, and then Colonel Kohar comes to him and tells him that the agents want to be reassured that their investments in this country will remain intact. So he turns to him and tells him that this will happen when his uncle dies, and he is the one holding the referee. So he says to Christ, you will upset us like that, and you will be upset. We were upset. And then he killed his assistant. On the other hand, Claire finally conducts the interview with Vinny Gas, and Claire begins to conduct the interview with Vinny Gas and asks about the reasons for the attempt to assassinate him. She tells him that she thinks who was behind this coup, and he tells her that the foreigners have exploited the resources of his country for a very long time. Was the hold on power and standing up to them like a morsel in falsehood, so their only goal is to castrate him, and all of this because he chose the interests of his people over his personal interests, and at that time you will see that the people there love him, and all of them love them and are happy that the Jas is there with them, and they know that the real authority is not in the hands of the intelligence services, neither the American nor the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and that both are considered a toy in the hands of the owners of large companies and the owners of international trade. When she asks him if these international companies threatened him with something, he responds to her and tells her that the soil of their country contains a substance called lancenet, and this substance is used in the manufacture of all digital devices, and because the companies wanted to take it, this item was at a small price. He did not agree and responded to them and told them that the amount was very small because it was worth more than that, and that he thought that he would provide a service to his country and its people, but the companies would not allow him to control them and their work, so they decided to get rid of him, and at this time, Mason would be the one. He films the whole meeting on Claire's phone, and at night they go partying together and continue to eat, drink, and dance all night. And the second day in the morning, Mason goes out and calls Sebastian, and they ask why I sold him to this country since he knew there would be a coup. So I sold to him because he knew and that the big companies asked me. I am the one who sent you, especially because you know that you hate me and you will get rid of him. And to be honest, I also expected that you would do this. And after Mason closes with him, he calls and checks on his wife, his daughter, and they know that he loves them very much, and he also asks them to take care of themselves. And then he tells Claire that they must escape from here quickly, but at the same time, Car Ast has come with armed men, and they are also looking for Vinny Gas in order to get rid of him. The president tells them that they must escape with him, and that he has a friend who has a car that they can escape with. And they actually go running with him, but when they arrive, they are surprised that it is a car. His friend is still an agricultural tractor, and then Mason and Claire decide that each one of them will take a horse, but Vinny Gus decides to confront them and actually goes to Kahar and tells him that he is not afraid of them, but Mason comes and takes him and sees him on the horse and walks away, and after that, we return to Claire and she runs away, but unfortunately the horse turns and she falls into being caught by the gunmen who were running after them. At that time, he takes Mason and Vinny Gas to a safe place, so Vinny Gas tells him, I know that you don't love me because you think that I am the cause of your colleague's death, but the truth is that I have no role in this matter, and also, when I knew that I'm coming to change my color, I was originally preparing a boat with which I would travel to Cuba, and then I would still flee from there, because I know that my country is weak and that I will not be able to face the American army. But the one who fired missiles at you is Kohar ESD, who is running after us now, and this is of course in agreement with the big companies to show that the country belongs to us. There are terrorist operations, and this is the justification for the American army entering the country at any time. Mason's house is shocked and he learns that he and his colleagues were victims in a political game between governments and large international companies. After a while, the two of them leave and he loses. At that time, Vinny Gas tells Mason that he has decided to surrender himself to Car ESD and the gunman who is with him, because Claire is not at fault for anything that happens. And the next day, a man named Edward arrives at the church and greets Vinny Gas and says to Vinny Gas that Edward remains the leader of the opposition, so Mason is surprised by what is happening, and he does not understand anything, so Vinny explained to him. Gus tells him that there must be an opposition in the country. That's why I chose my friend Edward to be the head of the opposition, because he opposes my opinion, and after that we will sit down and solve the problem. So beautiful Arabs have emerged, and this is of course necessary to show that they want to solve the people's problems and other things, but in reality, everything will be agreed upon with me, and I am also the one who determines the places where the explosion will take place, and then they go to Vinny Gas to hand himself over to Claire's place. At that time, Mason will be ready with a weapon, so that if any clash occurs, Kohar Ast will come down, and he will know Mason very well and tell him that he does not want any of them to die. The exchange must take place without any problems. At that time, Vinny Gas arrives and a large number of opponents and revolutionaries come and see him. They go down to attack Krast and his armed men. This is of course in agreement with Vinny Gas. At this time, Mason takes advantage of this chaos and takes Claire and Vinny Gas and quickly escapes. Then, Vinny Gas takes them and they enter. He tunnels like this and tells them that this tunnel was originally made to escape from the palace in emergency situations, so they used it to enter the palace, and at that time his nephew Karkai was getting ready to sit on the chair in place of Vinny Jas, but the first time he saw his uncle he was very afraid and held the gun in his hand, and Mason also held him. He also has a gun and is ready for anything, but Fingus tells his nephew not to be afraid of anything and calms down a little. And they also know that he is not upset with him and that he will forgive him. Then the general arrives and tells Cor that the big companies will not let him go, so he takes out his gun and beats Vinny, Gus, and Jorge, but Jorge hits the general and they die. He is also dying. But Fingus is wearing a bulletproof suit, so nothing happens to him. At this time, forces from the country's army attack them, and they tell the unclean to surrender himself, and behind them, thousands of forces enter, but there's Gus who keeps telling them that they are the army that is supposed to protect this country. And it is necessary as well. They defend us, and they know that Christus being exploited, and he will get rid of them if they stand against his interests. At that time, the army commander is convinced by what Vengus says, and begins clashing with Christ's forces, and a strong battle takes place between them. At that time, Mesa takes Claire to get her out of this electric place, and Claire starts filming every video on her mobile phone, and when they go outside, a battle takes place. She is very strong between Car, and Kohar acid is sold to him, saying that he is the one who killed his friends, and he also tells him to say hello to them, so that he will go to them again for a little while. But before Kohar Asset kills Mason, Claire arrives at the right time, and she is also able to hit Kohar Asset in the brain and take Mason so that they can escape from the place. But they meet the army forces. They are still not crying with lax, as Mason decides to take the weapon of a soldier lying on the ground and hits it with it, and here Claire becomes very impressed with him, and at this time he surprises Sebastian, and he stays with him with many forces and fights with Mason against his men. And then the videos that Claire filmed are shown on television. Everyone is talking about Claire's meeting with Vinny Gas, and after a while, we see Vinny Gas announcing to the people that he is resigning, and he has also decided to run in the main elections. At this time, Mason's wife is watching and sees her husband next to Vinny Gas. So she performs a heroic act, and after a while he returns home. He takes his daughter in his arms, and then a message comes to him from Vinny Gas, and he thanks her for everything he did for Belladoa, and tells him that I sent him a small gift. So Mason goes down to check his account, and Bella told him that she sold him $5 million. So Mason is very happy, and they read the job again, and he tells his wife that this job is for coughing groans, that we are loved by millions. And here he takes his daughter and his wife and goes out and breaks up. He also spends the whole day together, and thus the events of our movie today end. I hope you have a good time with us, and don't forget, also, if you like the 2000 videos, support us with a like and subscribe, and also activate the bell to receive all new updates.